And we are joined right now by a man who I've known for so many years. Love watching him on Fox News, where he is a strategic analyst and a great author. And he has a great new book that comes out next Tuesday, actually, Hell or Richmond, which is a great story, a novel about that takes place during the Civil War. We'll talk to him about that. And his current book, which has won a very prestigious award. Ralph Peters is with us. Hey, Ralph, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm great. Always great when I talk to you, Steve. I've missed talking to you.
Yes. No, it's been a while. It's been a long time, and I appreciate you coming on. And first appearance on the news show. This is week number 13.
Yeah, you and I go way back, though.
Way back. Yes, indeed. All right, there's so many topics to cover, and I want to start with what I was talking about in the previous segment, and that's Benghazi. And the president was asked today about a report that at least started on Fox News last night, where at least 4 career officials at the State Department and the CIA have retained lawyers or in the process of doing so. They're preparing to provide sensitive information about Benghazi to Congress, and they're claiming that they're being intimidated and being threatened, that if they do testify, their careers will be over. The president said he's heard nothing about this. Kerry's spokesman said he's heard nothing about this. You know, and here's a situation, here's a story where we found out that Hillary signed a cable, or at least her name was on a cable, that denied security to the embassy. She testified under oath she never saw such a cable. This to me is one of the biggest cover-ups. We have 4 dead Americans, including a U.S. ambassador, and God bless those in Congress, the few who want to see this through to find out who's responsible and who's lying about what.
Well, you know, Steve, it's like Watergate in the sense that it's not even about the event anymore. It's about this disgraceful presidential White House cover-up. And, in fact, it goes well beyond the White House. The only thing I will say is that it is standard practice in State Department cables emanating from Washington to have the secretary's name on the bottom of everyone, even if it's just about supplies of toilet paper for the Moscow embassy. So that's a bit of a red herring, but everything else is on. And I listened to the president's news conference this morning, and all I can say is that the guy is such a weasel that real weasels actually blush, and it's hard for weasels to blush. I mean, you know, it's like this. In the military, we used to call it tap dancing. You know, when you get a question, you don't want to answer it or can't answer it. And, man, he was tap dancing all over the podium. Can we ever get straight answers from this president? It's just astonishing to me that the establishment media let him coast, let him get by.
Well, at least they asked the questions today. They did ask about Benghazi. They did ask about Syria, which we'll get to in a second. They did ask about health care. So they didn't follow up with anything harsh, but at least it wasn't, you know, what's your favorite food? What are you going to do? Who do you like to win the NBA playoffs or whatever? But let's just one more on Benghazi. And, of course, you know, it's a situation where we still don't know who did it. And the president today, you know, we're going to get to the bottom of it. The same rhetoric from the day or two afterwards, and here it is. September? What are we? 6-7 months in already, and we don't have a clue.
Yeah. Well, remember, this is a guy that when he was campaigning in 2008 was going to fix Afghanistan.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and he sure did. I mean, he was going to close Gitmo. He was going to do this, that, and the other thing. And you know, Obama makes promises about what he's going to do, or he makes promises the way a drunk teenage boy does in a back seat with a cheerleader. I mean, he doesn't even mean it when he's saying it. He just has an end, in his case, a political end in mind. And I have to say, you know, he's our president. I want to respect him. I want to support him. You know, I'm not a party animal, Democrat or Republican. I'm independent. But this guy is so inept, dishonest, indecisive, that, I mean, he makes James Buchanan look like George Patton.
I love the analogies you're coming up with. We're talking to Ralph Peters here on the Steve Malzberg Show. You brought up Gitmo. Can we we'll get 43? I want you to listen to Gitmo was brought up. I think
I loved his answer.
Yeah, well, yeah. Here's 43.
It is not a surprise to me that we've got problems in Guantanamo, which is why when I was campaigning in 2007 and 2008, and when I was elected in 2008, I said we need to close Guantanamo. I continue to believe that we've got to close Guantanamo. I think, well, you know, I think it is critical for us to understand that Guantanamo is not necessary to keep America safe. It is expensive. It is inefficient. It hurts us in terms of our international standing. It lessens cooperation with our allies on counterterrorism efforts. It is a recruitment tool for extremists. It needs to be closed.
There you go.
Well, actually, I like the part. Didn't he? Well, perhaps I'm mixing up news conferences, but did he say something about we don't want these terrorists?
Yes. Okay. Yes. We got 44. Will. Well, we should point out the hunger strike and the riots and the problems that have been taking place there. Yes. Listen to what he says in the next cut. 44.
Now, Congress determined that they would not let us close it, and despite the fact that there are a number of the folks who are currently in Guantanamo, who the courts have said could be returned to their country of origin or potentially a third country. I'm going to go back at this. I've asked my team to review everything that's currently being done in Guantanamo, everything that we can do administratively, and I'm going to re-engage with Congress to try to make the case that this is not something that's in the best interest of the American people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have that part, but yes, and he was at that. But he said we don't want those people to die, the ones on a hunger strike.
See, that's why I'm not a member of the White House press corps. Because if I'd been in that room, I would have jumped up and said, "Me, I want them to die, Mr. President." If terrorists want to starve themselves to death, Steve, it may shock you, but I don't have a problem with that.
Neither do I, Ralph. Neither do I. We're talking to Ralph Peters here, the Fox News analyst, Fox News Channel strategic analyst, and you read him if you're in New York and around the country, New York Post, among other places. And before we get to Syria, let's talk about, first of all, the great honor that your current book has received, and then tell us about Hell or Richmond, which comes out next Tuesday.
Well, I was really surprised and thrilled that the American Library Association chose my last novel, Cain at Gettysburg, for it's called the Boyd Award for Literary Excellence in Military Writing or Military Fiction. And it was a big deal because it was a very popular book. It did quite well. The critical reviews were first rate, but the New York Times just ignored it totally, and the books they pushed didn't win. So there was a little bit of schadenfreude there.
Yeah. No, well, good for you. And Hell or Richmond?
Hell or Richmond comes out next Tuesday. It took more out of me than any book I've ever written. It's about the bloodiest month in American history until the end of World War II, the last months of World War II. It's set in 30 days, in May and June of 1864, when there were 88,000 American casualties in 30 days. The battles of the Wilderness, Cold Harbor, and Wilderness, Spotsylvania, and Cold Harbor. Utterly grim. I mean, it was just a time of absolute, utter breakdown and savagery, and people don't know about it. I mean, kids don't learn about this stuff in school anymore.
No, absolutely not. No,
it's a good, exciting read. You'll learn something about American history, and you'll also find out that when people tell you our country's never been so divided, well, we were a little more divided.
Yeah, I would say so. I can't wait to get it and read it, Ralph. And we'll have you back in a couple of weeks to talk about the book specifically.
Right.
But let's go to Syria. We have cut 40, I believe, which is the president talking about Syria. He was asked about the possible use of chemical weapons, the red line statement, the game changer statement, and here's what he had to say. No, we don't. All right, we don't have that one for some reason.
Steve,
but we know what he said. You talk about tap dance. He tap danced around that one real good, saying all of a sudden, well, we think they used it, but we don't know. Well, we're not sure who did it. If they did use it, it could have been the government. It could have been the rebels. So until we're sure, we're not going to do anything. Otherwise, that damages our credit. I mean, I can't believe what's going on here.
Well, he basically said, well, red. Yeah, I said red, but there are 50 shades of red, and it's just he's such a weasel. But here's the problem. Steve, with strategy, it's not just about doing the right thing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. And if you wait too long and do what looked like the right thing at the wrong time, you can make things worse. And I've really come around on this. Had Obama given judicious aid, weapons, intelligence, etc., not boots on the ground, weapons, intelligence, to the insurgents when they were still moderate in the first 8, 9, 10 months of the insurgency, Assad would be gone. It would be a game changer. We'd have a new government in Syria. But he waited, and people died. And it opened the door for the jihadis. And the Saudis supported some jihadi factions. The Qataris supported others. Even our supposed NATO allies, the Turks, supported Muslim Brotherhood factions. And so now I'm very reluctant to aid either side, because in terms of I'm sorry for the innocent civilians that are dying. But at some point, when Arabs are slaughtering Arabs, maybe they need to figure it out for themselves. And I'll tell you, in cold realpolitik terms, right now, Assad's thugs and jihadi thugs are slaughtering each other. And I don't have a big problem with that.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't want to see American boots on the ground. And certainly, and Ralph, you could answer this better than me. Who the heck are the rebels?
Well, that's the problem. Initially, we had a chance because the rebels were moderates, some secularists, they were tolerant. But as a bloody fight like this goes on, attitudes harden, intolerance grows. And, of course, because Obama delegated support for the insurgents to the Saudis and the Qataris and others, Saudi Arabia doesn't want a democratic rule of law Syria. It wants future Syria to look like a poor man's Saudi Arabia. And so naturally they supported ugly factions, different jihadi factions. And now, although the jihadis are not yet politically dominant in the opposition, they are militarily dominant. And when Assad comes down, the guys with the guns are going to take over. And so I have no sympathy with Assad. I hate that guy. He's killed Americans. But, my God, at this point, a jihadi government in Damascus would be, to my mind, even worse. So if it were up to me, I'd be very cynical. I would clandestinely slip the Assad regime targeting information about the worst jihadis. I would slip the moderate rebels that are left targeting information against Assad's thugs. And, oh, by the way, Hezbollah fighters are now in this on the government side, with Iran's behind,
right,
and
supporting Syria.
Assad.
Yeah.
The Al-Qaeda types are on the other side now, and people were worried about Israel's security. But I'll tell you, when the jihadi thugs and the Syrian government thugs are killing each other, they're not attacking Israel, and that's another plus.
That's true, except, I read a report today, Ralph, one final question, that like all of the thugs, Al-Qaeda is trying to get its hands on the chemical weapons.
Well, glad you brought that up, because we do have one hard, cold strategic interest in Syria, and that is preventing the extremist fanatics, the Islamist fanatics, from getting their hands on chemical weapons. All of our military planning should be directed toward that end. And it's going to be tough because, again, we waited so long. Some of them are dispersed.
Right.
But we do need a plan with airstrikes and, if necessary, limited special operations to keep the chemical weapons out of jihadi hands. It's going to be hard, but that's one thing we got to do.
Absolutely. Ralph, a pleasure, insightful as always. We watch you on Fox News, and read the book, folks. It's coming out next Tuesday. Get your orders in Amazon, all over the place. Hell or Richmond by the great Ralph Peters. We'll speak to you soon, Ralph, I promise.
Thank you.
Take care. Ralph Peters, ladies and gentlemen.